with 2 national championships in the last 6 years. So, DC, before we go to break, I know you're on for just only a couple minutes. Prince. Prince passed away this afternoon. Of course, we all know China passed away and Johnny Depp passed away. DC, you're one of the people who's big on pop culture. What did Prince mean to you, and what was your reaction when you found out the news this afternoon?
Oh man, it's just you think of how old he is. I mean, he's only 57. You know what I mean? Like it's not young by any means, but it's just tragic to hear. At the start of your day, pretty much that you lose a legend like that. We're talking about a guy that basically he's a Jimi Hendrix. You know what I mean? He's along those lines as a musical genius and a musical icon. What he has done for the music in general, and bringing in Purple Rain and When Doves Cry, and so many hits, man. The list never ends. And just to me personally, it's just another loss, man. It's a tragic loss, but when God calls, man, you got to go home. There's nothing that anybody else can say. Prince still lived a great life, very successful musician, and we'll all remember him for that. He's going to be a legend.
Couldn't say any better. So we're going to take a quick break here on Full Court Press Radio here on Thursday night. Myself, Eric Cisneros, and I think DC Hendrick will be on for one more segment. We'll take a quick break right back in about 2 minutes. We'll go pay some bills.
We're all born with the blues, whether we want to admit it or not. Though you'll truly experience the blues from a different yet very unique perspective when you visit Yippee-Ki-Yay Blues. At Yippee-Ki-Yay Blues, you'll experience some amazing sounds from aspiring talented musicians in the blues genre. Be sure to download Yippee-Ki-Yay Blues Android app from Google Play Store and get wired to the Rattled Beach Show on Friday nights. Blues on! YippieKiABlues.com.
Are you looking for some sick sports apparel? DHTK designed some of the newest and coolest brands such as Represent, Game Over, and Don't Hate the King. DHTK's vision is to integrate culture, fashion, and attitude that best represents the players and caters to us, the fans. Click on DHTK.com and subscribe to their mailing list for an automatic 10% off your order. If you are a basketball fan, follow DHTK on social media. Visit DHTK.com for more details. DHTK.com. You don't have to be a king to dress like one. More details. DH.
We are back to Full Court Press Radio Thursday edition. I'm your host, Dave Thompson, checking the tonight. My main man, Eric Cisneros of IndiaSCPRadio.com. Our special guest, DC Hendricks from the Experience, ESPN, Fort Wayne, Indiana, on those guys. So let's get back into the playoffs. Every game tonight with this show, before tip-off tonight, had just finished the first 2 games. So every game is now switching over to the lower seed team's home court. I'm going to start with DC since he's the guest. Who has been the most impressive team in the first 2 games, in your opinion, so far in the playoffs?
Honestly, the Indiana Pacers shocked me, and I'm not just saying that just because I'm from Indiana, but, a lot of people pretty much had Toronto sweeping them in this series. And the way they played in Game 1, coming in with total energy, 11 for 21 from three-point range, the way Paul George has defended DeRozan throughout this series, the way they defended Kyle Lowry in this series, it's just been phenomenal. So the Indiana Pacers have to be up there, still in the game in Toronto. And honestly, Miami Heat. Shockingly, a lot of people had Charlotte winning this series, which is kind of confusing to me because, in my opinion, Miami is one of the only teams that can possibly, give Cleveland fits in the East. So, just in my opinion, it's not too shocking, but just the way they've won in these 2 games, almost total dominance. So, to me, those are the 2 most impressive teams. The Western Conference has pretty much went as expected. So I had to pick two teams out of the Eastern Conference.
Eric, your thoughts? Who is the most impressive team you in the first two games in the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what DC just said right there. I mean, the Western Conference kind of wrote itself. I mean, they were really top heavy going in. The top four teams were kind of expected to do what they're doing right now. But as far as like the East goes, I'm gonna kind of go with a tie on either Atlanta or Miami, and here's why. Atlanta, I fully expected Boston to probably be up 2-0. Maybe Boston win the series 4-2. And right now Atlanta's just, they've had the upper hand the entire time. They're 2-0 on them. First game was a really good game. It was like 102-101, so it was like a 1-point difference. But they handled them. And then also, too, in the second game, it was a low-scoring game, 89-72. For Atlanta to be up 2-0, I know that Avery Bradley got hurt. It was unfortunate. I didn't think it would seal their death, though, and Atlanta looks like they have a death grip on them. Now, as far as Miami goes, as DC alluded to, some people had Charlotte win. I think between Boston and Charlotte, those two teams right there were the premier teams to pull an upset, I believe. I mean, Miami, on paper, amazing. Even without Chris Bosh, amazing. I mean, that roster is just sick. You would expect them to do good. But in the regular season, and here's why everyone probably thought Charlotte, including myself, in the regular season, Charlotte was beyond overachieving. They don't have the, quote-unquote sexy roster that Miami has, but they always find a way to get the job done, especially at home. So now that they're going to go back home for these next two games, that could be real interesting. But as far as right now goes, I mean, Miami also doesn't live up to that roster. I mean, and I've said this before on a previous show, that Miami did not live up to my expectations. They completely let me down. That team should be up there with Cleveland as a contender, and to me, they're just the next runner-up. You know what I'm saying? But they have dominated. I mean, they went through 123-91 in the first game, 115-103 in the second game, and they just completely put hands, feet, Timberland boots all over the Charlotte. The Charlotte Hornets. So I would definitely say Miami is the surprise one. Atlanta is kind of tied or maybe just behind it. But those would be my two surprise teams.
Wow. That just kicks me really bad, Eric, when you keep mentioning the word Hornets. We're not the Hornets team, we are the Hornets. Okay? Good luck.
Hey, man. Yeah, it's a quote super bad. People don't forget.
For me, the most impressive team, and I think I'm going to take two different teams. I think the LA Clippers have been very impressive in the first two games over Portland. Some people have Portland actually making this a series, but the Blazers have won both. The Blazers lost both games by 20 points. They barely scored 80 points last night. And the Clippers have looked like a team like they're supposed to all season. Chris Paul has turned himself back into the Chris Paul of old. Blake Griffin's starting to become more, of an asset to the team. And DeAndre Jordan finally is starting to show a little bit of signs of offense. And if he shows signs of offense, it's going to be a dangerous team going down the stretch. And, of course, the Dallas Mavericks, even though they're losing right now at halftime to Oklahoma City, the Mavericks, after getting embarrassed, and we saw this on Saturday, it was an embarrassment what Oklahoma City did to them on Saturday. For them to turn back around and hold Kevin Durant to 7-33, he missed the second most shots in playoff history. To hold him to 7-33 and then win, not just win in Oklahoma City and hold the Thunder to 84 points at home, that's very impressive. I mean, a team that, was playing on, duct tape. There was, I think, no Barea, no Darren Williams. I think DC, Eric, and I think Ethan started in the backcourt. Ethan served from IndianFTVRadio.com. I think all three of them started with Dirk and Mayuri on Tuesday night, and they still ended up winning. Somehow they dug up the corpse of Raymond Felton by his second career playoff double-double. And Rick Carlisle just proves once again that he's still a top-5 coach with basically Dirk and a bunch of D-League players. No offense to Darren Williams, who's really not healthy, and Wesley Matthews, whose shot still is important from last year. So I give both those teams a lot of credit. Now, Indiana does what Indiana does, and Toronto does what Toronto does in the playoffs. It just seems like the Raptors can't get this together. And if they don't get it together, they're going home early. Good news is that they're up 18 in the second quarter, and Paul George just got a technical foul. So the Indiana started letting it slip away a little bit. Now, guys, before we go into the bottom of the hour break, DC, in about 45 seconds, who is your most disappointing team in the first 2 games of the playoffs?
Most disappointing team. Kind of to co-sign with you. I'm going to say OKC. I actually expected them to, I wouldn't say walk away with this series, but I mean, I didn't think they'd give away a game like that, especially at home. So I'm going to have to say Oklahoma City. I figured they'd win both games at home, games 1 and 2. And like you said, to be shut down to 80 points with Kevin Durant and Westbrook is absolutely ridiculous.
It's excusable. Eric, who's your most disappointing team?
Well, so I don't mirror you guys and say OKC, I'm just going to turn it around and go and say Houston. I mean, Steph Curry was out that second game. That should have helped him out a little bit. But, I mean, the defense in the last stretch of that fourth quarter, James Harden in particular, is absolutely atrocious. There's no need for that in the NBA. I mean, I don't care who you are, you're getting pulled out the game. If you're going to act like that, if you're going to play matador defense with no kind of heart, I mean, as good as Harden is on the offensive end, and let's not get it twisted, he is amazing. I mean, he's one of the greatest players in today's game as far as that goes. But, I mean, Houston, man, I mean, they should be putting up a little bit more of a fight. I mean, Memphis has an excuse. I mean, they're playing one of the greatest Spurs teams, or the greatest Spurs team, in my opinion, that's ever been constructed. There's a pretty good Spurs teams. But, I mean, when you're starting Jordan Farmar, Vince Carter, Matt Barnes, Zach Randolph, and the Birdman, I mean, you expect to get killed by 50. So I'm gonna let them slide on that one. But as far as Houston goes, I mean, Jesus, man, show me a little more heart, man. I mean, it's been absolutely disgusting to watch that game.
Interesting point. So for me, the most disappointing team before we go into break is my Charlotte Hornets. Yes, I'm going to call them the most disappointing team because it seems like the Hornets have forgot how to play defense. The team that was ninth in the NBA points allowed has watched the Miami Heat set a franchise record in Game 1 with 123 points, and then turn back around and give up 115 points last night. A.K.A. Nick Batum is now potentially out for Game 3. This looks like a sweep. And I know our good friend E.J. Christian, who covers the Miami Heat, who's also on the playoff show, is going to probably not let me hear the end of this. And DC, you know how EJ is. He's ruthless. I am not going to hear the end of this. This has been a bad series. Al Jefferson's job is to get Hassan Whiteside in foul trouble. And the only thing Al Jefferson's done is shoot jump shots and forgot how to play defense. The entire Miami Heat offensive team has looked great. They've even let Amari Stoudemire, the corpse of Amari Stoudemire, no offense to my wife, who is probably listening, and went to high school with Amari. So they've allowed Amari Stoudemire to be a double-digit scorer per game in this series. DC, how tall are you?
I'm about 5'9".
And you could guard Amari Stoudemire in the post at 5'9". Okay.
Oh.
Amari hasn't had any type of offensive game since he left New York. Sorry for the time he did in Dallas. He hasn't done anything. He's really, if they wouldn't have traded Birdman, I think Birdman would have got more time than Amari. And Amari's a great guy, but Amari really hasn't done much. And he's now looking to a serviceable big man. I mean, they have let everybody on the Heat score. I even think Bernie the mascot has scored in this series. So I know I'm ripping Charlotte a new one, but when you give up 123 points and 115 points in back-to-back games, and now Nick Batum is seriously hurt right now because he got hurt last night, it doesn't look good for Charlotte because for some reason Steve Clifford hasn't even played Jeremy Lamb in this series at all. And I don't think Lamb has really seen much court time since, I think, mid-March. So Charlotte's my most disappointing team in the playoffs. I really thought the Hornets had a shot at this, but I think they're possibly done. But DC, before we let you out of here, tell everybody about your show and what you got planned on ESPN over up in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, you guys can check out, my show every Saturday on ESPN Radio 1380. Check out the website, espnfortwayne.com. Every Saturday, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. National sports, everything you can think of, we talk about it. The DC Industry Experience is actually not available right now. I got some moves I'm working on to bring that back, so I'll save that announcement for another day. But check out the sports website, sidelinesportsreport.com as well. And, guys, thanks for having me. on tonight.